I don't really have an overly cringe intro, so let's just get straight into this. How do we go about this? First, we will have a look at the respective weapon and an assessment of their overall strength in comparison to other S-rank options as well as the best A-rank options. We will look at the pros and cons for all units, then we will look at who utilizes these weapons the best, and lastly I will give you my personal rating on if these 600 residual signals are worth it, especially when looking at dupes, because, well, losing your 50-50 to one of these weapons is a thing. Let's start off hot with Fusion Compiler, as Burness is right around the corner and it certainly is an option for her. Fusion Compiler provides 24% pen ratio, 12% combat attack, and when using a special or EX special you gain 25 anomaly proficiency, stacking up to 3 times with each stack lasting for 8 seconds. With Fusion Compiler being Gray's signature weapon, there is no surprise that while still somewhat generic in its stats and effect, it is still tailored to Gray's playstyle, which evolves around spamming her special and EX special. Unfortunately for most other anomaly units, adopting such a playstyle is not very efficient for them. Piper and Jane both would rather not use their normal special, and their EX special is gated by energy, with Jane only gaining 1 stack each time. Piper at least can somewhat cheat some stacks because her EX special provides her with 3 stacks over the course of the skill's duration. In regards to Jane, sure, you can dodge cancel the specials, but this is still a loss of time and input, which you also need to maintain over time as well. With other options such as Electro Lip Gloss coming close or even ahead of Fusion Compiler, the question here is mostly a why would you use Fusion Compiler if it makes your life harder? And the answer is usually gonna be because it is the only anomaly weapon I have. But in that case, my question would be, why don't you craft yourself a Weeping Gemini or Rainforest Gummy? Both weapons have their downsides as well, of course, but will usually perform very well with less information to track. In regards to Burness, she can make a better use of stacking Fusion Compiler by double tapping her EX special, which will grant at least 2 stacks. However, with her spending most of her time off field, maintaining those stacks is yet another matter. I highly recommend watching my Burness guide if you want to know more about this. So, who utilizes Fusion Compiler the best? Well, that would definitely be Grace, followed by Piper, then Burness and Jane. However, all units not called Grace have a better or at least equal option at their disposal. This also means I personally would not consider spending 600 residual signals for the weapon at R1. However, getting copies of Fusion Compiler is a different matter, and not necessarily bad, as an R5 Fusion Compiler gives up to 150 AP, which is only topped by a 4-stack R5 Weeping Gemini, and gaining and especially maintaining 4 stacks on Weeping Gemini is unlikely, as the stacks do in fact reset. This also means that an R5 Fusion Compiler often outperforms the R1 signature weapons of the likes of Burness or Jane, and can hence save you on future pulls, at least in that regard. Overall, I would rate Fusion Compiler with 4 out of 5 stars in terms of residual signal spending value, with the biggest downside being that you often need to adapt your playstyle to being impractical in order to gain the most out of the weapon. Next up, the Restrained. Lycon's signature weapon grants 18% impact and a stacking basic attack, daze and damage amplify. Fortunately or unfortunately, I can keep this one pretty short, since it is unfortunately often outperformed by Hellfire Gears and even A-rank options such as Steam Oven or 6-shooter, on basically every single unit not called Qingyi, even including the unit it was meant for, this being Lycon. At least in regards to its daze, it does fare the best in regards to damage though. For more information on that, I would recommend watching Goba's Lycon guide, a link to that is in the description. Anyway, because the Restrained is not that great, I would much rather skip this weapon and instead talk about Hellfire Gears, because the same talking points apply. Which also means, no, the Restrained is not worth it whatsoever, at least in my opinion. So instead let's talk about Hellfire Gears, Collider's signature weapon. The short version of her weapon is, it is good and often the best in slot option for Collider, Lycon and Ambi. The long version is, the A-rank options are also really good. Hellfire Gears provides 18% impact, off-field energy regeneration and combat impact percent, stacking up to 2 times whenever an EX special is used. This weapon is fantastic for basically all stunners, providing a huge amount of impact and even greater for burst type stunners due to the off-field energy regeneration. This makes Hellfire Gears a fantastic, albeit generic choice for basically all stunners. However, that is only the case when ignoring the A-rank options the game provides, namely 6th Shooter and Steam Oven. The latter not only provides 50% energy regeneration, but also up to 25.6% combat impact. And since we start tier defense with 70 energy, that means we will start combat with 22.4% without the need of stacking it up, and also not being restricted to certain types of attacks. 6th Shooter provides 15% impact as well as a stacking days increase, which is yet another independent multiplier to impact and hence extremely strong. It does however require you to wait 15 seconds to fully stack. Regardless, both weapons are not only competitive with or even beating out Hellfire Gears, but Steam Oven is also craftable and hence a very good alternative. That said, in regards to who uses Hellfire Gears the best, that would basically be all stunners not called Chingy, namely Lycon, Ambi and Collider. While both 6th Shooter and Steam Oven can beat out Hellfire Gears in regards to days, they only do so by a small margin, but instead they do lack damage due to a lower base attack. Overall, I would rate Hellfire Gears with 4 out of 5 stars in regards to its residual signal spending value, and it can be a great addition to your weapon arsenal. However, getting more than one copy is usually not worth it compared to another yet unnamed option currently available. Let's talk about Weeping Cradle. Oh boy, Rena's signature weapon is something, and unless you play Rena, also either completely useless or at least rivaled by other options. Weeping Cradle provides pen ratio and applies a stacking debuff on enemies whenever the equipper attacks a target. And even though this debuff is extremely strong, don't get me wrong, Weeping Cradle is a very potent weapon, this debuff is also very short-lived and can only be applied by the equipper's attacks themselves, which means Lucy Spores cannot apply it. This also means for Rena we are looking at constant swap-ins to keep up the debuff, and for Lucy and Sakaku the practical value is near zero. Unless you want to play Lucy main DPS, in which case Weeping Cradle is actually really good and even ahead of her signature weapon, at least at the cost of trading energy regeneration for more damage. Nicole can actually use Weeping Cradle, and while her field can reapply and hence maintain Weeping Cradle's debuff for far longer than all other supports, at least as of right now, she also has access to the Vault, which is a very competitive A-rank option. So what does that mean for Weeping Cradle? Well, Cradle is fantastic for Rena and also great for Nicole. However, if you have the Vault for Nicole and much more so at R5, I would not recommend spending Residual Signals on Weeping Cradle. And that unfortunately leaves me with an overall rating of 3 out of 5 stars in regards to Residual Signal value. It is fantastic and even the best on slot option for Rena, and a great choice for Nicole as well. Nicole has an alternative, whereas Rena does not have many other great options to choose from. If you main Rena, the weapon is basically a must pull for her and you can disregard any personal rating I give this weapon. If you do not have the Vault, it is a great choice for Nicole as well, and it is an albeit expensive option for DPS Lucy. However, it is also not that usable on any other support outside of those. Next up, Steel Cushion. Nekomoto's signature weapon is fantastic if you can guarantee attacking enemies from behind, and usually the best choice for Nekomoto, Billy and Corrin. At least in theory, because all of them have yet another option which is less restrictive in its playstyle while providing an equal amount or even more damage. However, it is the best on slot choice for Corrin and also for Nekomoto if played as a burst DPS. Furthermore, Starlight Engine, Gilded Blossom and Brimstone all do in fact exist, and all of them are really good alternatives. The biggest advantage Steel Cushion actually has is its main stat providing 24% crit rate. Regardless, if you do have access to one of the unit's respective signature weapons, they can be a great choice as well. Housekeeper is fantastic for Corrin, also providing her with the energy regeneration she really craves for, Starlight Engine and Gilded Blossoms being really good generic options, and Cannon Rotor exists as well, but it is Battle Pass gated. So who uses Steel Cushion the best? Well, that likely would actually be Corrin, as she only wants to take the field during the enemy stun window due to her basic attacks being, how do I phrase this to not get cancelled? Not great at best. This also makes it significantly easier to attack enemies from behind. I mean, you know, if they are stunned, they cannot move. Nekomata also makes fantastic use of this, but if you play her on field and less bursty, Brimstone is another fantastic choice for her. For Billy, Steel Cushion is only slightly ahead of her signature, Starlight Engine Replica, at least if we are not considering the damage bonus when attacking from behind. All of this makes Steel Cushion a very potent option and even best in slot for all 3 agents, but also only these 3. Unless you main either Nico, Billy or Corrin, I would not recommend spending Residual Signals on this weapon, leaving Steel Cushion with 4 out of 5 stars. Now it is time to glaze and blaze, because Soldier 11's signature weapon Brimstone is here. And Brimstone is strong, very strong. In fact, it is so strong that Brimstone can not only be competitive, but even beat out some S-rank signature weapons on nearly all on-field DPS characters. Well, obviously depending on your team and build. It comes extremely close or can even beat out Sujuan's signature. It is a great alternative to Allen's signature. It is fantastic on Billy and on-field Necromancer and best in slot for Soldier 11. Providing 30% attack percent and up to 28% combat attack percent, going as far as 56% at R5, the Brimstone is a top choice for nearly all attack type DPS characters who use their basic attacks, dash attacks or dodge counters. Because it can also be utilized so well by so many characters, even getting dupes of this weapon is not really that bad if you care about horizontal investment, and it is still not bad when looking at vertical investment, as 56% combat attack percent is nothing to scoff at. Except if you are Corrin. Corrin really does not like Brimstone, since all she does is using her EX special, chain attack and ultimate, and hence cannot really gain stacks. All of this makes Brimstone though by far still the best option to spend your Residual Signals on, with a rating of 5 out of 5 stars, at least in my opinion. To finish up this video, let's quickly summarize all of this. Brimstone is a fantastic option and in my opinion well worth the 600 Residual Signals. Steel Cushion is a great option for Neko, Billy and especially Corrin, and Weeping Cradle is great for Rina, Nicole or DPS Lucy, but both Nicole and DPS Lucy have other albeit non-craftable options available. The Restrained is beaten out by Hellfire Gears, and another A-rank option coming close or even beating out the Restrained, at least in regards to days, does indeed exist, well, unless you play Jingye, and well, the same applies to Hellfire Gears. It is good enough to get one copy, but again, Steam often exists and it is a great competitive option. Fusion Compiler is great on Grace and partially also Piper, but impractical, albeit not bad on Jane and Burness. And with that said, I will leave a spreadsheet with the information of this video in the description for quick reference, that way you can decide by yourself if it is worth for your account or not. Thank you so much for watching, please leave a like if you liked this video, leave a dislike if you didn't, and in that case also a comment on why, subscribe for more Zenless Zone Zero content and guides, join the Discord if you haven't yet, and I do wish you a great day, Proxy. Peace.